Roman Empire. Rome began as a small city-state on the Tiber River, ruled by kings, then senators. But in 27 BC, after decades of civil war, Augustus became the first emperor, transforming the republic into an empire that would dominate the known world for centuries. At its height under Emperor Trajan in 117 AD, Rome controlled over 5 million square kilometers, stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia, from the Rhine to the Sahara. 70 million people lived under Roman law. The empire's true power wasn't just territorial. Rome built roads that connected continents, aqueducts that defied gravity, and a legal system that still shapes modern law. Latin became the language of government and learning. Roman citizenship meant rights and protections, a revolutionary concept. The legions were unstoppable, disciplined killing machines that conquered Gaul, Egypt, and Greece. But Rome's genius was integration. Conquered peoples could become Romans, their gods absorbed into the pantheon, their leaders made senators. The empire lasted over 4 centuries in the West, and the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, survived until 1453. Rome didn't just rule the ancient world, it defined Western civilization itself. Mongol Empire. In 1206, a man named Temujin united the warring nomadic tribes of the Central Asian steppes. He took the title Genghis Khan, universal ruler, and proceeded to build the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Within 2 generations, the Mongols controlled 24 million square kilometers, from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, from Siberia to the Persian Gulf. No empire before or since has conquered so much territory so quickly. The Mongols were pastoral nomads, shepherds, and horsemen, but they became the most feared military force on Earth. Their cavalry moved faster than any army in history, covering 100 miles per day. Their composite bows could pierce armor at 200 meters. They used psychological warfare, spreading terror ahead of their armies. Cities that resisted were annihilated. The Mongols destroyed Baghdad, ending the Islamic Golden Age. They devastated Russia, Poland, and Hungary. Estimates suggest their conquests killed 40 million people, 11% of the world's population. Yet the Mongol peace, Pax Mongolica, also connected East and West, enabling unprecedented trade along the Silk Road. After Genghis Khan's death in 1227, the empire fractured into 4 khanates. But for one brief, terrifying century, the Mongols ruled the world. British Empire. At its peak in 1920, the British Empire covered 35.5 million square kilometers, nearly a quarter of the Earth's land surface. Over 500 million people, 23% of the world's population, lived under the Union Jack. The sun literally never set on British territory. It was the largest empire in history by area and population. Britain's dominance began with naval supremacy. The Royal Navy ruled the waves, protecting trade routes and projecting power globally. The empire was built on commerce, the East India Company conquering India not for glory but for profit. Britain controlled the spice trade, the tea trade, the opium trade. The Industrial Revolution gave Britain technological superiority. British coal and steam powered the world. British capital financed railroads across continents. British goods flooded global markets. The empire spread the English language, parliamentary democracy, and common law to every inhabited continent. Cricket, rugby, and afternoon tea followed the flag. But the empire was also built on exploitation, slavery, famine, and cultural destruction. After World War II, weakened and bankrupt, Britain began the process of decolonization. By 1997, Hong Kong's return to China marked the empire's end. Yet Britain's legacy endures in language, law, and institutions across the former colonies. Ottoman Empire. For over 600 years, from 1299 to 1922, the Ottoman Empire dominated 3 continents, controlling Southeast Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa. At its height under Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century, the empire stretched from the gates of Vienna to the Persian Gulf, from Algeria to the Caucasus. Constantinople, renamed Istanbul after its conquest in 1453, became the empire's glittering capital, the bridge between East and West. The Ottomans were the most powerful Muslim empire in history, the sword of Islam. They ended the Byzantine Empire, the last remnant of Rome. They controlled the Holy Land, Mecca, and Medina. The Ottoman Sultan claimed the title of Caliph, leader of all Muslims. Ottoman armies terrified Christian Europe, besieging Vienna twice and controlling the Balkans for centuries. But the empire was more than military might. It was a sophisticated state with advanced bureaucracy, a meritocratic system where even Christian boys could rise to become grand viziers through the Devshirme system. Ottoman Istanbul was cosmopolitan, home to Muslims, Christians, and Jews. The empire controlled critical trade routes between Europe and Asia. Yet by the 19th century, the empire became the sick man of Europe, losing territory to nationalism and European imperialism. World War I delivered the final blow, and modern Turkey rose from the empire's ashes, a Achaemenid Persian Empire. Founded by Cyrus the Great in 550 BC, the Achaemenid Persian Empire became the world's first superpower and the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. At its peak under Darius I, around 500 BC, Persia controlled 5.5 million square kilometers and ruled 44% of the world's population, the highest percentage any empire has ever achieved. The empire stretched from the Indus Valley to Libya, from Central Asia to Egypt. 28 different nations paid tribute to the Persian king. Cyrus the Great was a revolutionary ruler. He abolished slavery, permitted religious freedom, and allowed conquered peoples to maintain their customs and laws. When he conquered Babylon, he freed the Jews and allowed them to return to Jerusalem. The Cyrus Cylinder, his declaration, is considered the first charter of human rights. The Persians built the Royal Road, a 2,500-kilometer highway connecting their vast empire, with postal stations every 20 kilometers. Persian administration was sophisticated, dividing the empire into satrapies governed by appointed officials. They standardized weights, measures, and coined money. Yet the empire's ambitions brought it into conflict with Greece, leading to the Persian Wars. The defeats at Marathon, Thermopylae, and Salamis checked Persian expansion into Europe. Alexander the Great finally destroyed the empire in 330 BC, but Persia's legacy of tolerance and administration influenced every empire that followed. Han Dynasty. While Rome dominated the West, the Han Dynasty ruled the East with equal power. Lasting from 206 BC to 220 AD, over 4 centuries, the Han unified China and controlled 6 million square kilometers at its height, ruling 60 million people, 1/4 of the world's population at the time. The Han created the Chinese identity. Before the Han, there were warring states. After, there were the Han people, a unified ethnic and cultural group that still bears the dynasty's name. The Han emperors established Confucianism as the state ideology, creating a bureaucracy based on merit through civil service examinations, a system that would last 2,000 years. They standardized writing, weights, measures, and currency across their vast empire. The Han opened the Silk Road, connecting China to the West and transforming global trade. Silk, porcelain, and paper flowed west. Horses, glass, and ideas flowed east. Chinese inventions like the compass, gunpowder, and papermaking would eventually revolutionize the world. The Han also expanded Chinese territory dramatically, conquering Korea, Vietnam, and Central Asia. Their military campaigns against the Xiongnu nomads secured the northern frontier. But internal corruption, powerful eunuchs, and peasant rebellions eventually tore the empire apart. When the Han fell in 220 AD, China fragmented into the Three Kingdoms period. Yet the Han's cultural and political legacy defined Chinese civilization forever. Spanish Empire. Spain's empire was the first on which the sun never set. At its height in the late 1700s, it covered 13.7 million square kilometers, 10% of the Earth's land area, spanning 4 continents. The empire began in 1492 when Christopher Columbus, sailing under Spanish patronage, reached the Americas. Spanish conquistadors followed, conquering vast territories with ruthless efficiency. Hernán Cortés destroyed the Aztec Empire with just 600 men. Francisco Pizarro toppled the Inca Empire with even fewer. Spain claimed most of Central and South America, Mexico, the Caribbean, the Philippines, and parts of North America. Silver and gold from the New World flooded into Spain, making it Europe's wealthiest power. The Spanish treasury controlled 25% of Europe's total precious metals. Potosi in Bolivia became one of the richest cities on Earth, its silver mountain funding Spanish military campaigns across Europe. Spain spread Catholicism with missionary zeal, converting millions. The Spanish Inquisition enforced religious orthodoxy. Spanish became the second most spoken language on Earth, spoken today by 500 million people. But Spain's wealth was a curse. Easy riches discouraged industrialization. Endless European wars drained the treasury. By the 19th century, independence movements swept Latin America. Spain lost its empire, but left an indelible mark on language, religion, and culture across the Americas.
Qing Dynasty. The Qing Dynasty was China's last imperial dynasty, and one of history's most populous empires. Established by the Manchu people in 1644, the Qing ruled for 268 years until 1912. At its territorial peak in the late 1700s, the empire controlled 14.7 million square kilometers, including modern China, Mongolia, Tibet, Xinjiang, and Taiwan. But the Qing's true power was demographic. In the mid-1800s, the empire ruled nearly 400 million people, 37% of the world's total population, a staggering concentration of humanity under one government. The Qing began as conquerors. The Manchu were a minority ruling over the Han Chinese majority, forcing Chinese men to adopt the Manchu Q hairstyle as a symbol of submission. Yet they also adopted Confucian governance, presenting themselves as the rightful heirs to Chinese imperial tradition. The Qing expanded Chinese territory to its greatest extent, conquering Central Asian kingdoms and subduing rebellions in Tibet and Xinjiang. Under Emperor Qianlong in the 18th century, China was the world's largest economy, producing 32% of global GDP. But the 19th century brought humiliation. European powers forced China to open to trade after the Opium Wars. The empire ceded Hong Kong, lost territory to Russia and Japan, and faced massive internal rebellions. The Boxer Rebellion's failure in 1901 exposed Qing weakness. The dynasty fell in 1912, ending over 2,000 years of imperial rule in China.